Today's video is about video game soundtracks from different games and how it subconsciously and internally influences and improves the gaming experience. In each game, there are numerous soundtracks which always want to convey a different vibe. For example, combat music, emotional music, background music, and much more. Each type of music should be unique and showcase the mood of the plots and scenes in the best possible way. For example, The Last of Us is known for their melancholy and profound music. The Last of Us often deals with emotions and flaunts them with deep dialogue and scenes. It is also particularly noteworthy that the main theme in The Last of Us 1 is even more dramatic and emotional. In The Last of Us 2, the main theme still sounds similar, but has one special feature. Since the game is much more brutal, emotional dry than the first part, the main theme also sounds accordingly, namely much darker. A prime example of the most varied soundtrack is definitely Undertale. There are many different types of soundtracks in Undertale: emotional music, action-packed fighting music, or simple piano pieces. However, these pieces of music are not just played anywhere, but perfectly adapted to the opponent, his thoughts, and the environment. The character Toriel is a loving, supportive person who wants to protect you at all costs. The music she plays seems very sad and hopeless. This perfectly reflects the character of Toriel by intelligently customizing her theme for you. As you fight Undyne, you'll probably notice that when he's about to lose his life, his background theme starts to get sentimental. There's a very interesting reason for this. His attacks are getting weaker and slower, and he's uttering phrases like, "See how strong we are when we believe in ourselves." This is almost perfectly implemented, since he was actually a very strong and combative character. Asgore, a boss that appears at the very end of the game, also has a very special musical wonder. Asgore is self-assured, yet self-critical. As he unleashes more and more powerful attacks, it seems impossible to defeat him. This is exactly what his theme reflects. The battle begins with the theme Bergentrucken, which starts slowly and then becomes really funky and almost aggressive with the Asgore theme. The game's meme soundtrack is also admirable. Namely, Sans and Papyrus are two very different characters despite being brothers, and their themes reflect that. Sans has a rather slow and charming theme, which fits its style perfectly. However, Papyrus has a very cranky and impatient theme. As you can see, Undertale has the most diverse soundtrack, but still does its job well. Respect to Toby Fox for this great work. What the Zelda franchise does with music is just as amazing. They have a variety of ways to perfectly use their music in their games. The Zelda Ocarina of Time theme music is hugely popular, and rightly so. Many say she's particularly nostalgic, and that's true. Back then, with much older and worse graphics. You heard the title music for the first time, now looking back with much better graphics now in our gaming market. It gives us a certain nostalgia when we hear the theme again. It is particularly different with Breath of the Wild. The main theme of Breath of the Wild is composed in such a way that it sounds like freedom, which is what the game wants to be, the pure freedom to discover and explore everything. In Majora's Mask, the Song of Healing is very popular, and that's definitely justified. The well-known mask dealer from Majora's Mask has left a very dark and mysterious impression. He even performed the Song of Healing himself, which makes it even more remarkable. That vibe between the mask dealer and the Song of Healing is perfectly portrayed, and that definitely makes it worth mentioning to me. Probably the best example of the perfect implementation of soundtrack and atmosphere is Hollow Knight. This game offers stunning and perfect soundtrack for atmosphere and characters. Hollow Knight is a very dark and mysterious game, which the soundtrack of this game perfectly reflects. The high piano tones and the elegant and slow violin tones showcase this perfectly. The game also scores with epic battle music. For example, the Hornet theme is outstandingly well composed and sets the scene for the sudden fight perfectly. Some players have probably been following Hornet for a while and wanted to know who this mysterious character is. The quick turn of a fight against her wasn't what you would expect, and that's what you hear in the soundtrack, namely the dramatic and restless mood. But Hollow Knight also has sentimental music, which even bears the name of the theme. City of Tears is the name of one of these pieces of music, an incredibly uplifting and sad soundtrack. The white and pink glowing elements in this area fit perfectly with the piano, which uses high but also low notes. Hollow Knight did everything right with its soundtrack. If you now imagine a game without a suitable soundtrack, you immediately notice that something is missing. The soundtrack determines the entire atmosphere, action, emotions, and plot. It seems inconspicuous and secondary, but that is exactly what makes it so important. She acts like a companion who changes more and more over time and the plot. While I talk all the time about the soundtrack being an important and integral part of a game, there are still scenes that look stunning without a soundtrack. There are scenes that don't need any music, only their intense and profound dialogues and emotions. Sometimes scenes without a soundtrack may seem dry and unloving, but the developers want to create exactly the opposite. They want to show you that a scene can be great even when it's silent, and that you write the dialogue in such a way that it literally hurts when you hear it. A good example of this is the scene when Ellie last spoke to Joel in The Last of Us 2. They communicate about a topic that is difficult for both of them. Ellie's deep emotions and sadness are clear to see. Also, it's clear that Joel doesn't regret his actions, and he himself says that if he got a second chance, he would do it the same way again. The way he emotionally engages with Ellie here is amazing, and this conversation manages to be perfectly executed even without a soundtrack. In this video, I showed you how big the influence of the video game soundtrack is on the actual game. What is your opinion on this topic, and what do you think about it? Tell me what you think in the comments. Thanks for watching, and see you next video.